Public speaking has never been a strong suit for me, so I asked my mom, who's made a career of making speeches, for advice. When in doubt, she told me, start off with a joke. Here's something my grandma shared on her deathbed. A few years back, she was in hospice and we gathered to say goodbye. She beckoned me to her bedside and, raising her voice over the machines and monitors hissing and beeping, asked, "Why is Michael Jackson so bad at sports?" At a loss of words, I shook my head. Through the pain, she smiled and said, "Because he's dead." She broke out in fits of toothless laughter, but mid-cackle, she keeled over and died. We are amusingly stunned because she fulfilled the Gallagher family motto, best to die laughing. My name is Sean, and I draw stuff and enjoy telling stories, especially through my artwork. As Pablo Picasso once said, art is a lie that enables us to realize the truth. It's weird to stand here and tell you about creativity, because most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. I just go for it and hope that it works out. 9 times out of 10, it's a fiasco, but that one instance, I believe, is the reason I'm here. Still, I've never considered myself an artist. Despite my success producing what some would label art, I've always considered myself a dabbler in creative endeavors. There are several moments, several times a day, I feel like a fraud, and I'm going to be exposed for essentially making all this up as I go. Because I've always marched to the beat of my own drum, I had instructors who insisted that there was a right and wrong way to create. As someone who does things the wrong way, this taught me to be suspicious of my abilities, and I've worked hard to unlearn the lackluster advice and understand that creativity has no rules, and that while there is good and bad art, art is art no matter how it's framed. It's been a journey. When I was fresh out of high school and embarking on college, at the time I believed drawing was a hobby, and I had to grow up and get a serious career. My high aspirations of being a doctor lasted for less than a week, and I switched to being an English major. I also joined the school newspaper and saw journalism as a career option. This turned out to be as misguided, or just as misguided, as once I entered the job market, I learned the industry was collapsing. Not that I didn't try being a reporter. I wanted that employment, however, like a kid lost in a cornfield maze, taking a lot of turns that resulted in dead ends. I got fired a lot, I quit and walked out a lot, I didn't show up to the second day a lot. I was asked not to show up on the second day a lot. My creativity eventually led me out of the maze. Ironically, while being a journalist, the accolades I earned were for artwork I made for the publications I worked for. What discouraged me, though, was constantly hearing the dimwit's way of explaining the realities of talent and luck whenever I asked for help. Some people have it and some people don't. Nevertheless, I reminded myself of what my dad taught me. Your loudest and least helpful critics will be the ones who lack the imagination to lob more creative insults at you. Creativity is weird, often unexplainable and random, and influenced at the strangest times. Like I said, most of the time I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who said this, perhaps Ernest Hemingway, but it sums up my feelings best. Creativity, your imagination, should explode out of your head like the crack of a shotgun. Don't be afraid to make a mess. I feel that everyone can be artistic, creative, what have you, yet like anything, it's about patience and practice and struggle and frustration and the drive to keep at it. I've been lucky. I owe a lot to my parents, wife, and kids who've provided and continue to offer an environment that encourages and supports my creative process and gives it a chance to flourish. For it to flourish, however, I utilize my biggest creative asset, boredom. I remember a teacher telling the class that only bored people are boring, but those feel like the words of an adult annoyed with complaining teenagers. Boredom is essential to the creative process, and I wish more people embraced it. I read once that boredom is when life happens. The author lists a litany of things she does when she's bored, mostly errands and chores, but there are some creative ventures. For me, boredom is a driving force. It pushes my artwork in different directions to try new ways to convey the story in my head, and it's a marker of when I know I'm close to finishing a piece. Because boredom is why I started drawing, being an only child, let me start that again. Boredom is the reason why I started drawing. Being an only child who spent a good portion of his childhood riding in the back of cars or stuck on airplanes without siblings to pass the time, my parents provided paper and pencil to keep me entertained. Helped that I had an active imagination, which allowed me to take images in my head out into the world. Along with boredom, you must also encounter failure in one form or another, as I have. No creative can escape rejection. It's a rite of passage, and once you make it out the other side, you know you can survive and push forward. It goes hand in hand with boredom, and having them is a good buffer against the fear of putting yourself out there and the negative criticism you're bound to receive. Boredom and failure got me here. When I was making this, I thought the slide that I'm going to be talking about is going to be up, but it'll be there. Here are a few examples of my art not so long ago. It's fun, ho-hum drivel, and I was growing increasingly bored with the style. They lacked story and substance, and they were just things I produced. During the pandemic, I've been watching a lot of movies and TV shows, including my favorite of mine, King of the Hill. I also love the work of Edward Gorey, as it was mentioned, enough so that I got his art tattooed on me. Growing increasingly tired of what I was creating and frustrated with the lack of traction, I decided to try a Gorey-esque version of Hank and his buddies. It was rough, but it was a hit. Oh, that's me. The King of the Hill, oh man, almost there. King of the Hill went viral, and in all honesty, I didn't know what to do with the sudden recognition, not one to squander an opportunity. I went with it despite not knowing where to take it beyond pop culture references. Then two things happened. Seinfeld Weezer mashup became more popular online than the King of the Hill piece, while others I made in the new style were published in a variety of magazines where previous attempts got rejected. I then landed an agent with a creative agency, solidifying my creative choices are okay. Yay.